All the way from the start, I can feel it in my heart, like all the way from the start.
Hey, what's going on out there? I'm Sean Devine, and today I've got a new video for y'all, and I wanted to talk about the real world mixing and referencing technique. This may not seem like a new thing for you, but I'm gonna just tell you the different approaches I have and also the different references that I use for my mixing. The big point here is that, guys, as much as we like to think about the monitors and getting expensive speakers and all that and listen to your mixes on them, most people are not listening on monitors. So you just have to realize and recognize that 90% probably are on earbuds or inferior speakers. So I'm not saying that monitors don't have a place, they don't have a use, and they're not very useful, but you just have to put it into perspective and realize that car stereos, home stereos, all these things that I'm going to show you and talk about, these different options, are going to be really good references to make sure that your mixes are going to translate to a lot of different systems rather than just sounding good in your studio setup. So let's start off with the first one. Is definitely going to be a car reference. I always like to take my mixes into the car and just kind of get a feel for how things are reacting on car speakers. I don't know what it is, but usually when you take it in the car, within the first listen, you can pick out things that need to be improved upon. So that's a big one. And I used to, have to burn a lot of CDs. I went through a lot of CDRs, just taking mixes into the car. Thankfully nowadays, I just use a USB drive, put the mix on there, and I have a USB input in my car. Moving on, the next one would be putting on the laptop. Laptop speakers are obviously going to have little to no bass at all. There's not really a stereo spread to them, and they're very hi-fi, tinny sounding. So you're going to hear only really a few elements of the mix, and that's going to be the vocal, as well as a snare drum, any kind of guitars or mid-frequency instruments. So you want to focus on that, and obviously make sure you can pick everything apart still on the laptop, which means making sure that in your mix choices you choose to have the important things sitting in those ranges, because that's all people are really going to hear on the laptop is those mid frequencies and high frequencies. You can also use the laptop as a good way to judge sibilance. I use it a lot. If you've got really harsh S's or even resonant kind of piano sounds, it's good to check those on a laptop. So be sure to use that as a reference. The next one would definitely be a set of consumer earbuds. Obviously the best ones would be, in my opinion, iPhone, iPad earbuds, because most people out here have them. So you can get a hold of those and be able to, again, get a good sense of what they're going to sound like. They are not great sounding earphones. They've gotten a little bit better, but still not a really hi-fi system, but are going to allow you to make some smart choices in terms of your mix reference. All right, so the next reference would be a set of bookshelf speakers. I don't even know if they make the ones that I'm using anymore, but the point is you just want a set of consumer speakers that maybe people are using for home theater, or they have their iPod or something like that hooked up to a record player, CD player, whatever, just to get a sense of kind of in the living room what that's going to sound like. And I have a Bluetooth adapter, so I can hook up my laptop or my phone or whatever Bluetooth device to check the mixes out of the studio directly on those. So another really important reference speaker is going to be your phone. So the phone does not lie, because it cannot do a whole lot. It cannot portray a whole lot of frequencies. Again, the same kind of concept with the laptop. You're really only going to hear the vocal and some high frequency stuff dipping into some of the mids. So even the bass kind of stuff is going to be either there barely or not at all. So it definitely will strip it down to the core. And it's a really good reference because you can't fool the phone into making something sound good. Whereas if you're on monitors, you've got really exciting bass or a very wide stereo field. With the phone, you have zero stereo field, you have no bass, and it's just a very good kind of measuring stick to figure out where you're at musically and is the vibe there even when you're listening on a phone, because that's really important. Most people's first listen, I would argue, is going to be on the phone, so you want to make sure that you still have it at the core sounding pleasing to you and highlighting the most important elements of the mix on the phone. The last reference speaker I use would be my iMac speakers. These are located underneath the monitor, and so they kind of simulate what a speaker would sound like on a TV. So it's very useful just to hear what it might sound like, if it was broadcast, or again, just giving you a reference that doesn't have a lot of bass, doesn't have a lot of stereo field happening, and very useful for me to go back and forth. I can actually just switch the output setting on my computer or in Cubase or Logic and just go back and forth between that and my monitors. All right, y'all, so that's a couple of different reference speakers that I use for, like consumer real world measuring, rather than just listening on my studio speakers and saying, okay, it sounds like good on these, it's going to sound good on everything, because that's not the way it works. You can, have less back and forth if you've got a good tuned room with good speakers, but you're still going to want to take them outside the studio, get a feel for your mixes out there, see what works, and make adjustments so that everyone is getting, close to the same listening experience that you have on your studio speakers. So hope this is helpful. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave them below, and we'll talk to you soon.